What's going on, guys? Deontay Wilder against Zhilei Zhang is coming up, and rather than just do a straight-up prediction and preview who's going to win the fight, and I will get to that at a later date, but right now I wanted to discuss who I think actually has the most to lose in this one, and why I think both fighters' careers are essentially on the line in this fight, given how rapidly the heavyweight division is evolving at this point in time. You see, because Deontay Wilder only a couple of years ago was considered one of the top 2-3 heavyweights in the world, and even a couple of months back, most people, including myself, made him a significant favorite over Anthony Joshua. Now, I know a lot of people in the comments of my video of Deontay Wilder against Joseph Parker thought that I wasn't giving Parker enough of a chance to win the fight. And it turned out you guys who said that were 100% correct. But I think even those who expected Parker to win that one probably were taken aback by how poor Deontay Wilder looked in that fight. I don't think very many people, even those who expected Parker to win, thought that Deontay Wilder would show as little aggression as he did in that fight. For a guy who was billed for several years as the most feared puncher in boxing, he couldn't have looked any further from that. It was one of the tamest high-level heavyweight performances that I've seen in a good few years. And Deontay Wilder, I think, needs to show in this fight that he actually didn't lose his fighting instinct in the jungles of Central America, and that he actually still has ambitions to hang around in the heavyweight division. Because if he shows up and fights against Zhang like he did against Joseph Parker, then he might as well go on, face Francis Ngannou in a cash-out fight and retire, because that's where his career will be headed if he loses this one, if he puts in a really tame performance. And on top of that, I think Deontay Wilder is also at risk of tarnishing the legacy of his past fights against Tyson Fury. Because make no mistake about it, people at the time gave him a lot of credit for the heart that he displayed in those fights, and it earned him a lot of respect even in a losing effort. But the fact is, people also tend to remember what happened later on more clearly than they do things that happened a few years ago in the more distant past. And so that means that if people remember Deontay Wilder's career ending with a whimper, barely throwing a punch against Joseph Parker, barely throwing a punch against Zhilei Zhang, and then potentially even losing to Francis Ngannou or having a iffy, boring performance against Francis Ngannou, it's generally going to put his previous accomplishments into the shadows, and people are just going to remember him as a guy who basically had the stuffing knocked out of him by Tyson Fury, who people are going to retroactively say also that Deontay Wilder maybe wasn't that good in the first place. So his past legacy, all of the stuff that he's been building up over the last few years, all of that's on the line. But on the other hand, if he wins this fight, if he puts in a really good performance, if he shows a lot of heart, potentially even if he loses, but puts in a performance like he did in the trilogy fight with Tyson Fury, then the world is still his oyster in heavyweight boxing terms. Then Deontay Wilder, with his KO power, is still going to be able to get these big fights. He's still going to be involved in the heavyweight tournament that's going on in Saudi Arabia, and he's still going to have the potential to get his rematch with Joseph Parker, his rematch with Tyson Fury, his first fight with Anthony Joshua, a fight with Alexander Usyk. All of these will become possible if he beats Zhilei Zhang, if he looks impressive, if he looks aggressive, and if he shows the heart that he showed against Tyson Fury. But that's why I think Deontay Wilder has so much to lose here. Because if he does all of those things, the world could still be his oyster in heavyweight boxing terms. But if he doesn't, then his career is all but over at this point. Now, here's another thing which I think makes this one even more dramatic than the Parker fight. Deontay Wilder was built to beat a heavyweight like Zhilei Zhang, because Zhilei Zhang has very limited movement. He stands in front of his opponents, and yes, he's a good counterpuncher, and yes, he does have power, but Deontay Wilder has a good chin. So he should be able to keep himself at range, and he should be able to hit Zhilei Zhang, and he should be willing to let his hands go. All of that should, and I'm saying should a lot, but all of that should be enough to get a knockout when you consider the fact that Francis Ngannou, who supposedly had an iron chin, got put on the deck by Anthony Joshua. And what that shows you is Zhilei Zhang absolutely can be put on the deck by Deontay Wilder. But the question is, will Deontay be aggressive enough to actually do it? Deontay Wilder losing to Joseph Parker could be excused in the sense that a mover like Parker probably always was going to give Deontay Wilder a lot of problems. And even though Deontay Wilder didn't put up much of a fight, it makes sense that he struggled against someone who moves as much as Joseph Parker did. But against a stationary opponent like Zhilei Zhang, Deontay Wilder should have a lot fewer problems. And if he puts in a tame performance here, I think that's even considerably worse than the performance that he put in against Joseph Parker, because even though Zhang is a much tougher puncher, he's also a lot less mobile, and that means Deontay Wilder should be able to connect with him, and he should be able to get him out of there if he does. Now, what about Zhilei Zhang? What does he have to lose in this fight? Well, in my opinion, and I don't know if you guys will agree with this, but in my opinion, this is a very risky fight for Zhang to take, and I would say possibly almost even a mistake. And the reason why I say that is because unlike Deontay Wilder, Zhilei Zhang actually came close to stopping Joseph Parker in their fight. And if he had come in my opinion, just a little bit lighter and a little bit better shape, I think Zhang probably would have been able to get Joseph Parker out of there. And I don't mind saying that in the third round of that fight, I was worried that my prediction of Parker beating Zhang comprehensively was actually going to go out the window. But instead, Zhang wasn't in shape. He lost stamina in the later half of the fight. And as a result, he was able to get comprehensively beaten by Joseph Parker, and it didn't look good. So here's the thing. Zhilei Zhang needs to come in a lot better shape in this fight. He needs to show that his 2 victories against Joe Joyce weren't just a fluke, because in my opinion, he lost to Filip Hrgović. He also lost to Joseph Parker in everyone's opinion. And in between, he has 2 victories over Joe Joyce. So we don't want Zhang, if you're a Zhang fan, to just get to the point where he loses to everyone apart from Joe Joyce, because at that stage, you're basically just saying, well, he got 2 lucky victories against a guy who was perhaps slightly overrated at that point in time. But if he gets a good victory over Deontay Wilder and then goes on to rematch, let's say, Joseph Parker, as he was originally supposed to, wins back his interim title, then Zhilei Zhang, let's say, gets promoted to full champion status with the WBO, and his career's back on track. But if he loses to Wilder, it's going to be very, very difficult, I think, to see that happening, because of the fact that he will have actually lost 3 out of his last 5 fights. And even though they've been against high-level opponents, that is not a great record by any stretch of the imagination. So I think that Zhilei Zhang has more to lose in this fight in terms of where his career can potentially go from here, arguably. But I think Deontay Wilder has more to lose in terms of how people will perceive his legacy in the past, his past accomplishments, and how good he essentially really was. But let me know, guys, in the comments, who do you think has more to lose here? Is it Zhang? Is it Wilder? Do you think it's a 50-50 fight? Do you think both guys have the same amount to lose? Or do you think one guy has got more to lose than the other here? Let me know, guys, in the comments what you think of this one. Thank you, as always, for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.